Welcome, everybody. This is Priyanka Jain from ARING, and you're listening to the Analytics Cafe podcast, the show that sheds light on practical analytics and data science topics for people in business who love to put data to work.
And today we're going to talk about what it means to monetize your data. And to talk about that, I have with me Doug Laney. He's a former distinguished analyst with Gartner's CDO research and advisory team. He's also the best-selling author of Infonomics, which you can see in the background. And he also helped set up Deloitte's Analytics Institute. So we are in great presence here to talk about what it means to monetize your data. So with that, welcome, Doug.
Thanks, Priyanka. Great to be with you.
Yes, it's exciting. And you are currently reading your data strategy for Caserta, right?
Yes.
So tell us more about it.
So Caserta is one of the premier boutique data and analytics firms, and has been building data warehouses and data lakes and advanced analytics solutions for nearly 2 decades. And I've joined recently to head the data strategy practice.
That's great. That's so exciting. And you have been talking about you can't monetize the data you can't manage well. And it's
Right.
sort of tying up to the thing that I've been talking and saying for a while, which is about you can't manage what you can't measure.
Right.
So let's talk about from measuring to managing to monetizing. Why is it relevant and how is it relevant in our day-to-day decision making?
So for most organizations, we don't measure data because it's not a balance sheet asset. And I argue that information meets the criteria of an asset because it's something that's owned and controlled, exchangeable for cash, and generates probable future economic benefits. That's the definition of an asset, but the accounting profession still doesn't allow organizations, even those that are data brokers or make their business models primarily based on information, can't put the value of that on their balance sheet. And like you say, you can't manage what you don't measure, or you can't manage well what you don't measure. And because of that, companies don't manage their information with the same kind of discipline that they manage other assets, like their physical assets or their financial assets or even their human capital. And it follows that if there's an asset that you're not managing particularly well, you're not making it available, it's got quality issues, and other kinds of issues, then you're in a poor position to monetize it, to generate economic benefits from it. So a lot of people talk about data monetization being strictly selling and licensing data, but my perspective on monetizing data is well beyond that. There are a variety of ways to generate significant economic benefits from data, not just selling it. So for a lot of companies, this is kind of a vicious cycle, and the idea behind Infonomics is to turn this into more of a virtuous cycle.
That's great. And so when you're talking about monetizing data, you're talking about retailers or e-commerce or anybody who has data to be able to leverage it, just not data brokers, but to be able to leverage for our day-to-day decision making.
Sure.
What role does data strategy play in there?
So the data strategy at the outset should be looking at what data is available and how to make it more available, how to integrate it, how to cleanse it, how to store it, how to structure it, and then at the other end, what are we going to do with it? And there are a variety of things that we can do with data, from using it to make better decisions, to baking it into existing products or services to make them that much more valuable, to designing new products and services from them, to bartering or exchanging data or analytics with others in return for favorable commercial terms. So there's a variety of ways to generate benefits from data, and that's part of that strategy, is to determine what all of those are and which ones to pursue.
Makes sense. And who should be thinking about this? Is it like the role of CDOs or CIOs, or who should be thinking about this?
That's a great question. I mean, everybody in the organization should be thinking about how to use data better, how to use their assets better.
Yeah.
But primarily, yeah, that's the role of the emerging chief data officer, or sometimes the CIO or other business leaders or the CEO. But very often, boards of directors are starting to ask questions now of the executive team. All right, with all this data that we now have and have access to, how are we maximizing the benefits that it's delivering to the organization? How are we managing it like the way that we manage our other assets? Some companies manage their office furniture better than they manage their assets, because again, office furniture is a balance sheet asset, right? So.
Exactly. And this ties in very well to our work that we do, which we're talking about data culture work. And
Sure.
in setting up the data culture for the organization, there are 4 Ds we talk about. One of them is data maturity. And data maturity is fitting right into this monetization or having the data strategy to have easy access to single source of truth.
Right.
And then you can build up like data literacy on top of that. Then once you have access to easy access to data literacy on top of that, data driven decision making on top of that, as well as data driven leadership, right? So all that builds up towards the culture data. So any last tip for our listening CDOs, CIOs?
I would say go visit your chief financial officer and have this conversation. I understand data is not a balance sheet asset, but we're in the midst of the information age or the digital age, and shouldn't we be managing it like an actual asset? And let's think about how to quantify its value in different ways as if it were a balance sheet asset. And I've written about how to do so. I've developed models for quantifying data's value in a variety of different ways. And many organizations are using these models to drive significant behaviors when it comes to managing and using their data better. So have the conversation with your CFO, and even though it's not a balance sheet asset, perhaps think about creating a supplemental balance sheet that is communicated internally that looks at the improvements or degradation of data's value over time.
That's great. And before you go into that conversation, pick up a copy of Infonomics and read up and make sure that you're on, and actually get a copy for your CFO with that.
Right. Thanks, Bianca.
Thank you and hope listeners please comment or reach out as needed. Thank you.